In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use pistons to light up your hostile mob spawning pads to control mob spawning at the flick of a switch. I'm naming this system the Spawning Pad Integrated Lighting System, or SPILS for short. This method can be easily adapted to work with rectangular spawning pads as large as 9 meters by 7 meters. Anything larger will require more than one light source per pad. The spawning pads themselves are built according to the method developed by Etho for his hostile mob grinder. It consists of an array of square 6 by 6 meter spawning pads separated by 2 meter water canals. There is a link to Etho's tutorials on building this array in the description of this video. Let's get started. Here's what the SPILS mechanism looks like on the inside. I use 2 sticky pistons to raise and lower a glowstone block by 2 meters. The glowstone block has a gravity-affected block on top, which gets pushed up when the glowstone is pushed up and falls back down when the glowstone is pulled down. This is controlled by the right half of the circuitry. The left half is a pulse generator that is needed to pull the glowstone down completely. I'll cover this in more detail during the construction process. Although many of you will be integrating the SPILS into an already existing spawning pad array, I'll be demonstrating how to construct both the SPILS and an example spawning pad. Even though these types of spawning pads are typically carved out underground instead of constructed on the surface, the same principles apply. Here's the materials you'll need for each individual SPILS. To create the pad itself, you'll need 55 solid blocks of some kind. I'll be using sandstone for better contrast. You'll also need an additional 8 solid blocks for use in building the circuitry. I prefer using colored wool, again for contrast. The other materials you'll need are 2 sticky pistons, 1 glowstone block, 1 gravity-affected block such as sand or gravel, 9 pieces of redstone dust for the internal wiring, 2 redstone torches, and 3 redstone repeaters. It's also helpful to have on hand some extra redstone dust for wiring the pads together, a couple of levers for testing things out, and a regular torch for internal lighting. First, I'll build the walls and upper surface of the spawning pad. There needs to be a single block missing from the upper surface, which is where the glowstone will emerge from. Due to lighting and circuitry requirements, this hole needs to be flush with the far wall of the pad, 1 meter from the right corner. Next, I'll lower the floor by 3 meters. Now, I'll place some initial circuitry blocks. First, I'll only be placing the blocks needed to extend and retract both pistons, so you can see why we need the pulse generator. 1 block goes on the floor directly below the opening in the ceiling. 4 others go along the right wall, starting in the far upper right corner next to the opening, and descending in a stair-step pattern across the wall. I'll also put a torch on one of these blocks for lighting. Before I place the 2 sticky pistons, I'll dig an access way to get back in. This is also where the wiring will go that will connect this SPILS with the rest of the array. Now I'll place the 2 sticky pistons on top of this block that's below the opening, both facing upwards. On top of that, I'll place the glowstone, and then the gravity-affected block, gravel in this case. I prefer to use gravel instead of sand because sand is more valuable in making things like glass and TNT. Now I'll lay the wiring. First, I need to run a wire up the steps on the right, which will power the uppermost block. Secondly, I'll place a repeater pointing at the block below the pistons and connect it. This needs to be set to either the 2nd or the 3rd position. I prefer to use the 3rd. Finally, I'll place a lever on the wall up here to test the circuit out. Note that as things are now, both pistons extend and retract perfectly. However, because the sticky pistons don't chain together, when the top piston is pulled back down, it doesn't pull the glowstone along with it. To address this, I need to send a short pulse to this piston once it is pulled back down that will cause it to extend and immediately retract, pulling the glowstone with it. For this, we need a pulse generator. I'll be using the Design A pulse generator from the Minecraft Wiki's Redstone circuitry page with a few modifications. First, I need a little bit more room for the pulse generator, so I'll mine out a few blocks along the left-hand wall. Although only these first 3 blocks need to be removed, I'll just remove the bottom 2 rows of this wall, 1 block deep, for simplicity's sake. Now I'll place the 2 blocks of the pulse generator, one in the ground in the near left corner, and the other diagonal from the first one, with an empty diagonal block between them. Now I can place the 2 torches. One goes on the far side of the corner block. The other, which is the output torch, goes on the far side of the other block. Above this output torch we place the last circuitry block, on top of which we place a single redstone wire. This will send the pulse into the top piston when both are in the retracted position. Finally, I need to delay sending this pulse until after both pistons have retracted. I could figure out a way to place a single redstone repeater before the signal splits here, but due to the space constraints of wanting to fit this inside a 6x6 spawning pad, it's simpler to use 2 redstone repeaters, one on each signal branch. Both repeaters should be placed against the block that the output torch is on, pointing to it. Also, using a repeater here prevents a wire in this location from creating a short circuit with this one. Set each of these 2 repeaters to 1 more delay than the first redstone repeater, so either 3 or 4. Once I connect the repeaters with wiring, the spills is complete. Let's test it out. Works great. And there you have it, a way to use pistons and redstone to turn your mob spawning system on and off with the flick of a switch.